Happy 4th of July. Hopefully, you're having a great day today, guys. We're going to jump into some analysis for this upcoming week. I know it's Friday, so we just got some things to recap and go over. There is this uncommon approach that we've had to the market, at least from what I've been getting from feedback. People are finding our approach to be a little bit uncommon, which is we are focusing specifically in like space tech, in nuclear, in quantum computing, in all of these different places that they possibly are what's most people are looking at, but for the most part they are the niche markets, these smaller markets. And I wanted to touch a little bit on why it is that we focus on these smaller niche markets of space tech, or that are becoming bigger, or robotics, or semiconductors, which semiconductors are already huge, right? But part of the reason why, and why I have such a focus on these things lately, has been because of a focus on the most emerging, fastest growing technologies that we could find in the world. And so when it comes to Big Bear AI, or it comes to quantum computing or what have you, I think it's really common that there's a lot of coverage online, especially from a ton of people who there's really not a barrier of entry for someone to make a video about these things. And it's also something I recently was looking at. I see Martin's in the chats. BBAI is going to be awesome. Is BBAI still in the buying range? Shaji says. So we'll take a look there. And one of the things I recently noticed was we had kind of an increasing number of people on the channel that were like 18 to 24 years old. So kind of like a small, younger audience. And so one of the things that kind of got me thinking is maybe some of us that have been investing for a while, that have built out progress and grown our portfolios, maybe we're older, which doesn't mean that just because you're young you might not have a big portfolio. It's possible you do, but a lot of times what happens is when you're just getting started, it can be very easy to let stocks become a pendulum. Let's big market euphoria kick in and become something you put a lot of weight towards, and have a feeling of this. It's called a pendulum because it basically sways you. It's not hypnotic. Well, it could be considered hypnotic, but basically it puts you into a feeling of that you invest a lot of your time, a lot of your energy, a lot of your focus into one specific thing. And what happens is that thing then has a lot of weight and can impact you. It almost becomes like you give it more control, right? And so when it comes to BBAI, one of the biggest things I want to get out there for those of you guys that are doing the short-term trading and the smaller moves, or the bigger moves that are on the short term, is that I would expect tremendous volatility. And if you're just getting started, you're learning how to invest, we see this hyper bull trend kick in. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about the drawings here and what the trends are looking like. But realize that right now is a time when we could see some big pullbacks as a result of some of the growth we've seen recently. So just keep that in mind. For those of you guys that are just getting started, you're new, it's easy to say like, this is going to go up forever. So I just want to preface this video for BBAI specifically that while most people cut their winners short and let their losers ride, so there is advantage to adding to your winners. It means your thesis is playing out. There's also caution that should be had in the fact that you need a plan. Confidently have a plan. So let's talk about it. We're going to go through three things with BBAI. I'd like to go into BlackSky a little bit. We did enter a position there a couple of months ago. We're up about 66%, or I guess maybe even less than a month ago. AMD, some of the top AI stocks to watch here. So we're going to jump in here. How is everybody doing on 4th of July? You guys want to comment? Let me know where you're tuning in from. And maybe 4th of July doesn't mean much to you. Maybe it does. If you're looking at the stock market, it probably does mean a lot to you because, hey, We got the ability to do this right now in the US stock market. So let's take a look here. And we could go deeper on that. Sweden, from Mydril says from Sweden. I love that. So let's take a look here. We've started covering Big Bear at around $1 a share back in October. It's right here around $1.38, somewhere here. We saw it really drive its way up to about $10.36. So a huge run by February. After February, the rest of the market, including Big Bear, really sold off. We saw a lot of that kick in. I see Conan saying from Ireland, love it. I've always wanted to go to both those places. I have a friend that just went to Sweden and got to see her the past weekend. And my wife is really good friend, or a lot better friends with her, but she was talking about how she was living in Sweden for a little bit, loved it. In Ireland, when I was growing up, my brother used to have this Ireland shirt. And he'd always say, we're going to Ireland. We're going to Ireland. I even have a tiny bit of Irish in my family as well. So as you can see, then it started in April to make this recovery. And this is when things started to really continue the market cap build. You see right here, it bounced on the 200-day moving average. And we started to see it build some momentum. So let's actually pull up the drawings now so you kind of see what it looks like. We started to see this trend kick in. So in April, where it was starting to build its market cap back up. Now, the overall defense market did see some more confidence. We saw some more confidence in that there would be some defense spending, especially related to software and things. So Big Bear AI had an advantage there. And then also, really into about December, but really into this last quarter, we started to see some more institutional spending. So institutional spending really started to heat up. You got BlackRock, AE Industrials, you got State Street, Vanguard, really started to pour more money into Big Bear. And so the market was doing good, the things are heating up, and now we see a breakout here. I see Seppo says from Netherlands, oh, that's awesome. And then Robert says Toronto, Canada. I've been to Toronto as well. I love Toronto. But when I went, it was freezing cold, like so cold. I think it was like maybe March, but it was cold. Oh my gosh. And but it was beautiful. And so then we started to see this kick in with more institutional interest. We started to see it break out above that resistance, validate it as a support here, and then now start this hyper bull trend. So in this hyper bull trend, you can kind of get a good look here. Let me just stretch this open here. You can see here, every time that it's pushed to new highs, it's then used the previous high as a support. So now it's pushed up to 730 back about 5 days ago. And then what did it do? It sold down. It uses that previous resistance as a support. So this is a level where we're seeing hyperbull trend kick in. Then we saw basically on yesterday, so Thursday, it shot up to $8.28, which is great. Got to give away StockMate to those of you that joined in a window where I have call options on Big Bear AI. So I said, hey, if Big Bear AI hits $8 and you get in on StockMate, which is our community, during that window, then you would get StockMate for free. And I got a bunch of messages. People are like, "Where's my free? I'm getting excited." So that is something that we got happening. We got to give out some StockMate rebates, and then we got the same deal, same idea there. So you got this previous resistance level, and I think this level here, if it acts as a support, this $7.50 range we talked about yesterday, then yeah, the hyper bull trend could continue up. And next target's kind of like that $8.50 range. So we're kind of watching those levels. And then when it comes to some of the new contracts and things in the airports, and as we move around, seeing them secure more across the whole United States and also into other countries. And I see Bradley says San Luis Obispo, baby, California. It's funny, when I used to play like football and basketball, the championship that I played in California, it was like the San Luis Obispo was like the place where if you make it that far, that's like um, that's that's where the championships always were. San Luis Obispo, really beautiful spot in California. Jacob Jenkins says, had an average of $2.44 on Big Bear, sold this weekend for a lovely profit, and I'll buy again in soon. Jacob says, yeah, whatever your plan was, if you're able to execute what was at that moment about a 3x or 4x, excellent. Great job. My average on the long term is about $2.80. So I'm kind of there with you as well. You got a nice entry. I still have my long-term positions, and then short-term, we don't have anything happening right now. We're looking for some entries here. And why we're watching this level so importantly is because of the potential for it to sell back down in this $7 range seems a little bit higher, as it has stalled out a tad after that recent push. So it's this consolidation for the past basically 2 days. So now we kind of look at this level, we say, oh, are we going to get this consolidation, maybe sell back down the 720 range, somewhere in here? I think that would make a lot of sense and would be healthy. Now, of course, we could see more institutional buying kick in, or even this was a drive up in the price before institutions plan to sell. But the long term looks really promising. One of the recent articles we had come out with the company, and I think there was even an article yesterday. Was it here? No. There was a new article someone sent me a link to, but it wasn't directly from Big Bear, so that's why I'm not going to go into it. But directly from Big Bear, directly from the source, you do have this John F. Kennedy, you got Los Angeles, you got Montreal, Vancouver, Port of Seattle. This is big time expansion. And this is even a little bit of talk about the innovation, kind of possibly hinting at what is the World Cup coming up. It says, this is designed to streamline international arrivals experience for U.S. citizens while also maximizing security and compliance. So maybe they're kind of hinting at we're about to have a lot of people coming into the US, and as a result, our technology is there that we can monitor people that come in, because when we do that, the technology that they're putting out here, why they're expanding into all these different airports, is so that when somebody comes into the US or goes from point to point, they're able to actually monitor that. So that's a huge technology. Not only is it the actual hardware and contracts that could potentially drive the stock up further, and it's mostly going to be also hinting at what could be the financials, but also hinting at the actual data. I think the data is a big deal too. The net income, they did clean up on the balance sheet in that last quarter. They paid down a bunch of debt, so that's why we were more bullish on the financial side of things as they continue to increase their total assets. So total liabilities dropping down, so financials looking more profitable there. I see Jacob says, Cepho says, was down €6 at EU market today. Got it. $7.30. Hi, Will from the UK. Reese says, Southeast London. Was wondering if you think 1K euros Monday at open is a good idea, or 50-50 split it 500 in open, then wait to react. It's not going to be based on most likely the timing, as much as it is going to be based on the plan you have together. Because BlackRock could sell tomorrow. Do we know whether or not that's going to happen? Probably not. BlackRock could buy tomorrow. Do we know whether or not that's going to happen? Probably not. So just keep that in mind. If you have both those things in mind, it's kind of put less effort on timing and more effort on the plan, and set aside, let's say, a certain amount of risk that is that 1-2%, or predetermine what you're going for. Are you going for that 10%? Are you going for more? Are you going for less? Like one of the things that we use all the time is this calculator. And basically, like if you were going in at $7.30, let's say it's at 7.50, and you get 1,000 shares, there's proportional risk. So I think the big thing is like proportional risk. Like if you're going for 10%, then maybe a 2% stop. Or if you're going for 20% or 30% here for that type of profit, then you have to have the ability to have the temperance to monitor that, to be able to watch it go down. That's why long-term investors have basically very much almost an unlimited amount of risk, man. Like they don't care if it goes down, because they're looking for 10, 20 years. Like that's what I do. I add to my positions, and I'm like, I'm okay if it goes down, because I'm okay waiting. But if you're looking for timing and things like that on the shorter term trade, it's great. You can be a winner. Like I do it all the time. I can tell you that when it comes to trading, it works, but it won't work unless you have a plan in place. Because when we're looking for a trade, and let's say we're at a support, we're at a resistance, yes, it would make sense that all the probabilities in our favor, but no, it wouldn't make sense that it's going to continue, or that we know if BlackRock's going to buy or sell. And the only thing that we can control is that plan, and look for like less risk than that of our profit that gives us enough time to continue to grow. Does that make sense? Hopefully that helps, Reese. Also, shout out to our analytics on the channel. Did you guys know how many returning viewers we have? Like we have a lot newer viewers, but the returning viewers is crazy, guys. I just want to say thanks. We got like 7,000 a day at some points in the last week of returning viewers, which is, I think, just indication that we're getting some good value out there. So that's really cool. Now, when it comes to the recent moves, we'll definitely be watching the $7.50 level and seeing if it can break back above that 7.90 here. One of the other comments here from Saul says, I'm looking to load the boat on BBAI if it pulls back to 7. I could see that previous resistance there. Pretty strong level. T-Money says, got 2K shares at $3.64. Let's go. You've doubled your money. Congratulations. My Jewel says, that's on Q2. Do you think the go to profit on earnings per share, do we need a couple of quarters? No, I think the next quarter may surprise. If you listen to their last quarter, you kind of had an idea. One thing that they mentioned was that they didn't have all of the revenues and their contracts hit their bank accounts, but they had expected them to hit. So I'll give you an example. Like they had 33 million, then they had in the next quarter 40 million, then 41 million, then 43 million. They were seeing these increases in revenue, and then revenue dropped a little bit in March 2025 when they reported, but they said, hey, it's a little lower, but we do have some contracts that we expected it to hit our bank account, but it hadn't hit yet, and we can't count the revenue, but it should show up in the next quarter. That's one reason we could see it push. The other reason we could see it push is going to be that article that they just came out where they really did verify the new places where they have deployed the Veriscan, all these airports. And there's no contract values that have been assigned yet. So we don't know. It could be like low, but even if it's like $500,000 per airport, I mean, that could push their financials pretty favorable. So that's something we'll be watching there. So yeah, to answer your question, personally, I would expect it to do well in their next earnings, but it's not going to be something that would like immediately potentially justify a $3 billion valuation like they've had recently, or $2.2 billion valuation. I don't know that it's going to immediately justify it, but where they're going and what people see with the technology is mostly why they would see this continue. Now, I just also want to say, go directly to the source. There's too many articles coming out that say, like, when did the Economic Times say this is going to turn small investors into millionaires? I mean, I get it, but I get the possibility, but I will never. I don't understand the speculation is so confident. Do you understand? Like, I don't understand the confidence in speculation. Like, obviously, I think it's okay to have that conversation about the potential. But if you have people believing they're going to be rich just because they buy this stock and that's how easy it's going to be, I think it could mislead a ton of investors. Like, there could be serious volatility. Like, the market cap is up there already and it's starting to push. Yes, it could make sense they continue, but when it comes to like the financials, they're gonna have a big surprise to push it up into that, $15-20 range, to actually justify the continued valuation. And I mean, I say that as someone that's been covering them since $1 a share and like has been investing in them for a considerable amount of time, and I have long-term positions. It's great to see them run, but there will be corrections along the way. So get ready for those things to potentially happen for sure. Okay, so we got Alex says thinking of selling at 770. Yeah, whatever the plan is. Clayton says born in the USA, now living in Peru. That's awesome. I've never been there. I've been to Colombia, I've been to Argentina. All beautiful places. I've actually heard Peru is really nice. Would love to go there. Very is heating up. So we'll take a look. We're going to jump into some ticker symbols. I see you guys are doing some ticker symbols now, and we'll jump right in. So the first ticker symbol that we had mentioned here is from Aaron. He says very. And then Lucas says Archer. We'll take a look. Veritone. I've done some analysis on this one before, and you can see they've kind of sold off. They've had their manipulations. They've sold down, sold down, sold down, had some manipulation. They're down to $1.22. When we take a look at their stock, it's going to most likely indicate some incongruency maybe on the financials. So let's take a look. They raised about $10 million recently. Annual revenues have been around 100 to 150 million with negative net income. Balance sheets has been decreasingly moving from total assets shrinking about 44%, while total liabilities have shrunk as well. It's showing signs not of progress, at least on the surface, but of declination in their financial situation. They're raising some money, and there's potential for them to continue. But we do see that they do not have the financials to back up any upward momentum. Their AI software and custom AI, fair amount of stock images, but they do seem to be at some places doing some things. Let's take a look at the news. They just got a contract with the Air Force. No contract value assigned. If they're not getting assigned a contract value, then sometimes that means that it was so low they don't want to mention it. They do have some public press, and they do seem to be working toward it's also weird they're using other third parties as their news. Riverside County Sheriff for AI redaction. Industry-leading redaction software, part of its intelligent for evidence. Veritone. It looks like they're going with DoD potentially here. A lot of contracts with no values assigned. Yeah, so I mean, it seems like I'm kind of back pretty far now, but if we go to the recent contracts, doesn't look like there's been any crazy new dollars added to the balance sheet. They did have this DoD contract, which is actually good because DoD normally doesn't come in until, like, especially in the new administration, they're a little bit more reluctant to give out DoD contracts. So that's good. Yeah, I mean, they just got awarded this contract, but there's no dollar amounts attached to it. So that's the only concern I would have. Their financials are decreasing and their stock is decreasing. Seems very highly risky, but I personally wouldn't touch it. But I do see how, with a few catalysts and continued momentum, their product offering, if they have a unique selling point that puts them at an advantage, then we can see that value increase in those recoveries. We're talking about 100 to 200% potential, but it has been pumped, it has been manipulated in the past, so most likely I wouldn't touch it. But if anything develops, feel free to let me know. Yeah, just let me know, Aaron, if you have any specific reasons you think they're the most overlooked AI on the market. So, let me know why. What is that? Why? Is it the value they're providing to the marketplace? Is it the what is value to the marketplace? Well, value to the marketplace means that you, or let's say the company providing the value, is doing something that is not easily duplicatable, is providing value that it would make it hard to replace you if you didn't have it, and would show signs of real world usage from companies firsthand that you can truly see that it's making a difference. Now, if you don't have those things, there's a good reason why it wouldn't continue to build any market cap. So I don't see the first-hand usage there, and I don't know that they couldn't be replaced fairly easily. Does that make sense, Aaron? I mean, but let me know, definitely, if you have something specific you notice in their value. All right, so we got Lucas says Archer. Migel says spending a lot of money, is it for risk stock dilution? There's always risks with that. I think it's great if a company raises money and does public share offering. Why? Because it shows that they have investor interest and they're able to sell. So it's good. It actually means, like, sometimes that means those early stage companies will survive and thrive to the degree of which they're able to sell. So it's actually not a bad thing. When I see public money raised, I actually see that as a good indicator personally. I know there's a lot of connotations like they're diluting, it's bad. I understand, but I think it's actually a really good indication that they're doing good. Not that they're doing good, but it's just not bad indication. The reason it's not good indication is because it means they got money from investors, but it doesn't necessarily it means they got money because they provided an immediate value to the marketplace. Could just mean they got investors, which is different. So that's why it's not good, but it's not bad in my eyes. T Money says, okay, going to buy 1,000 more shares. Hey, all power to you, man. ACHR analysis from Lucas, and he sent me $1.99, dude. Appreciate that. That is awesome. And you know what that would pay for? Is I just got some electrolyte drinks, and they have like little packets, and I think each packet is probably around like 50 cents to $1. So you paid for like 4 of those things to keep me hydrated, dude. Let's go, Lucas. So ACHR, Archer, we're going to go over to our aviation watch list over here. Aviation tech, we got Archer, ACHR. Looks like last time we were analyzing it, we were looking for, I don't know if it was this move here when it was here, or if it was after. I think this chart here was a projection of this move. So I think we made this, like, it was down here and we said, hey, it's going to go up to here, a 34% increase. Yeah, because the last time I covered it was a lot longer ago. So it was about a 30% swing, and then we see it sell down, consolidate out a little bit. Let's kind of take a step back and look at the financials, but let's also, let's really look at this chart here. So you have a lot of reasons why it's kind of built this, this trend here. You see it kind of continue, make its run, I guess conservatively, maybe it's more like that, something like here with the exception of that big increase. And possibly the bullish outlook, which I'm not sure what you're looking at, the bullish outlook would be like a swing like this. So like a 35% potential swing up into that $13 range. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is a company that recently IPO'd, no? Yeah, so they IPO'd not too long ago. Oh, no, it was 2021. Okay, so, all right. Then you take a look at Archer, ACHR, $6 billion market cap. They have about 700 employees, and they're working to get flying cars out there. This is kind of what we talk about when it comes to like real world usage. We know the aviation market is growing extremely fast. We know that the need for travel to be expedited is definitely growing. And I see Ricardo gives a thumbs up. Awesome. When it comes to the balance sheet and stuff, they have seen more investments. So the balance sheet actually looks fairly good. You see the balance sheet. But their income statement is fairly horrendous. They're basically coming in no revenue with around 200 million negative, about $500 million spent with no income. So you're very much buying what could be in the financial side of things. And then if you take a look at Archer Aviation's hype, there's a lot of hype, so you got to be careful. Head over to, not be careful in general, I mean be careful reading those specific articles. What I love is that they have an actual photo, not just like a 3D rendering, and that they show actual photos of building, not just 3D renderings. So this is excellent to see. They are showing, like, for example, downtown Manhattan to Newark EWR Airport. One of the biggest things that I know they're working on too is the sound. The sound is definitely something. They're all electric tilt propeller technology, so they're 100% electric. And they're building US scaled manufacturing facility here, which is a 3D rendering. So that's something you got to watch out for. Like I said, we want to see the real thing. I love 3D renderings. They're great for the vision, but they aren't so good for the verification of the market usage. They have partnerships apparently here with United Airlines. I think they have investments from United, and they are in defense. They are in commercial. And they have a partnership with Anduril. Anduril is definitely on the cutting edge. When we went to the QBTS conference in Scottsdale, they were there. And they were looking at quantum computers. So, you know, if they're here in Archer, it's possible they see something very special. This is the advisory board, partnering with the US Department of Defense. Let's take a look at their recent news. So we'll go company and more, and we'll go to news. So press releases. Partnered with JTEX, integrate global infrastructure portfolio into air taxis. So air taxis. One of the focuses is raising money. Obviously, they've raised a lot of money. According to their balance sheet, we saw a lot of negative incomes, but the balance sheet looking increasingly more positive and good. So that was good. When it comes to, whether or not to invest in them, or like, I would say they're very much a higher risk play that you could potentially look for, that 2 to 3 years or long-term play, or potentially trading news like this that could potentially shoot them up that 30% range. The problem I have with it, obviously, is going to be that they're actually showing signs of real world usage. A very good example would be like Lucid. Like Lucid had a lot of contracts and a bunch of like potential orders for their cars back in the day. Now they're maybe building a little bit better, but they had like a problem with their manufacturing, which in this case, Archer, while they're working towards building that manufacturing plant there that we kind of saw here, it was a manufacturing plant somewhere, I don't know where it was, they still don't have it out. And so same thing with Lucid, like that was one of their problems. And if you looked at Lucid when they kind of came into the scene, they had a lot of hype, a lot of things like this, but overall they just like continued to decrease and sell off. And so I'm not saying it's the same, obviously there's some potential here, but you do see a big spike, a big increase, and actually with spending negative $500 million a year, a market cap of $6 billion. So I think a little overvalued. Personally, I wouldn't buy it right now, but maybe the long term would make more sense. The short term trades could potentially heat up here when we see it continue that trend and continue to potentially swing up here, maybe push above that 200-day moving average. We know that that green line oftentimes acts as a support in a bullish environment, or a resistance in a bearish environment here. So we'd watch that 200-day moving average here, see if it can break back above, as it is consolidating right now. So some potential there for Archer, but not anything I would bet. I wouldn't go big on Archer personally because of the what could be. It's kind of like a long-term potential with maybe some trading opportunities in the short term, but not anything groundbreaking as far as real world usage just yet. So that's kind of how I see it. Truth Seeker says, can you do a sound analysis? We could do that. Ricardo. Joel says, I think technique of biometric scanning is going to be the standard. I believe so too. Shaji says, subbed from Bahrain. Thank you so much. Jimmy Richardson, you're doing a good job, bro. That's why we keep coming day after day. Congrats, my friend. Hey, I appreciate it, Jimmy. I think a lot of it is you doing a good job too. I think some people like take action on the information, and that's why they come back, because they see results. The number one indicator for me on whether or not I'm succeeding actually won't be views at all. It will be the change that we directly see in impacts of people's lives for the better. I want to help you guys get what you want, help you grow your portfolio, help you find the best cutting edge companies. Thomas says, what's your prediction this week for BBAI? We kind of went over at the beginning of the video here. I'd be more than happy to jump back in it for a second, but basically what we had was a $7.50 strong potential support here, and if we see it get rejected as it's consolidating from left to right, that $7.20 range or $7 range would be the conservative sell down. If you see a push above that $7.90 or $8 range, you do have a potential for it to continue that run. So the short term kind of looks like that. Long-term prediction, I think for Big Bear, it most likely could be a $10 to $30 or $50 stock if they continue to improve their financials. And otherwise, fair value for them if they continued their financials in the way that I imagine they would hold their financials. I think puts them between like a $5 to $10 stock with current financials. But if they really start to improve, like I said, we could see them in those higher ranges. I do think it's possible we see sell downs here as low as $5.50, but it's less likely if the bullish momentum continues, right? But it is always a possibility. You got to watch there. So like definitely like short term, you want to have your risk managed. I love that. Yeah. So HNST, we can take a look. And Cepho, do you agree that all institution buys have been early in the mornings? Usually they're scheduled either in the morning or when they schedule their orders is either like right at market open, pre-market area, or into the sell of usually scheduled for the end of the day. So that's normally when institutions will schedule their orders. That's why we're able to usually make the money in trading in the shorter term in those first 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And that's why I go live right at market open in StockMate. That's why. It's because usually the biggest moves happen there right at market open. And we look for those oversold opportunities because what you're looking for is those overextensions, the market overreacting or moving in a certain direction as a result of institutions that then trigger sell-offs or retail to react. And then we look for that entry after that, if that is the case in a sell-off or a buying opportunity. Yeah. When it comes to some of the other callouts, so let's go back up there. It was a sound analysis. So if we go to AI, we got sound, SOUN. Where is it? I know it's on our watch list here. There it is. Currently don't have any positions. It was really interesting watching it back here when we were trading it. We traded this whole trend up here for a while. We had some analysis go through. We saw it break pattern here after this push back up and then it sold back down. And so now it has a totally kind of new development. I think we see a market cap build for sure. The issue with them is going to be their real world applications, which I believe they were kind of building out. You do have a very strong resistance or previous support here at about $12.70. It's kind of that next level for them. So if they're going to make that move, it's kind of how it looks here. More or less up into this range. They're going to continue in that 1250. That would be kind of the next level for them. And we'll be watching it closely, definitely. I mean, this is like a 10% swing, but I think margin for risk is pretty high still. Unless, of course, you're looking for that longer term swing up into these levels of $24, $25. But obviously, it faced a tremendous amount of manipulation during that period of time. I mean, we're talking about a very large amount of manipulation. But potential, if it did swing, I mean, I'm not going to go into that really. It's about 120%. But what you could look at is what matters. What do we know about the company? I think they got partnerships with like Hyundai. They got partnerships with some like police company, police officer, police stations to have like AI analysis of what's going on in front of them, and then the SoundHound AI like basically talks to them about what's going on. Annually, the net income is super negative. Quarterly, super volatile, but then they increase their net income big time in that last quarter. Balance sheet has been increasingly positive, which looks pretty good. And overall, financials actually have cooked up in the last quarter because their net income really rose. But that was a result, I think, of selling maybe some direct offerings or something else that pushed it up because their balance sheet saw a big increase there as well. So when it comes to sound, let's take a look here. They have this AI voice and they have drive-throughs. They were potentially going to partner there with McDonald's at one point. They got a partnership with White Castle. Looks like they have been able to build out some relationships. They do have a lot of stock images, but you got AI for White Castle, Chipotle, Jersey Mike's, Panda Express, Krispy Kreme, Firehouse, Applebee's, Church's, Five Guys, Torchy's Tacos, Casey's. Actually, tremendous amount of growth there. So just in the last few months, we've seen them really get a lot of customers for their AI voice, and you love to see it. You love to see it. So I just went to Jersey Mike's yesterday. So I don't know how that works really. I don't know if it's like a phone thing or what happens. Not really sure. Um, but hey, sounds cool. When it comes to their other kind of industries they're in, it's not just restaurants, right? So they work with banks, they work with a lot of company. They got Hyundai there, as we mentioned, Kia. They work with that voice interactive software for a lot of automakers. So I would imagine custom AI voice solutions will continue to grow, and they have a lot of potential. Even Teva Pharmaceuticals there. And so they build out maybe large language models, or at least a way for companies to talk to either their own company, inside their own company resources, or to customer facing solutions. So yeah, I mean, I really like the technology. It seems like that would be really valuable. When it comes to the potential here for SoundHound to make that full recovery, that's very aggressive. The next target's that 10-12% increase into that $12.50 range. If we see them break back up, you do have a resistance there at about $16.50 right here that you could see. Now, when it comes to their valuation, that's about a 50% margin for profit. But the valuation currently, $4 billion market cap, it's possible that that could continue to be justified if they come in with even more positive net income and revenue in the next quarter. That would be justified. Otherwise, most likely, I would expect to sell down even as low as $6, somewhere in there. And that's really what would make a lot of sense if their valuation doesn't improve. Awesome. Cool. Someone says, I still get PTSD from Johnny's like, I get PTSD from Lucid. That's so funny. Not funny. That's not funny, Johnny. He says, wait for the trend. Yeah, waiting for the trend is one thing. Don't only look at the trend though. So many people tell me that they learn from people. Oh yeah, I set my stop and I look at the trend, and as long as I'm trading an uptrend, it works. How many of you guys have tried that and it doesn't work? I mean, I could tell you from my experience when I was first starting out, that was the only thing I focused on. Uptrends. But so many times what would happen, you buy right at the support in an uptrend and it continues to sell down. Why is that? It breaks pattern when you buy, what have you. Well, think about it this way. It's like just because it's an uptrend or just because it's at the top necessarily doesn't mean it's a good investment or a bad investment. What it comes down to is going to be all the probabilities for sure in your favor, but also think about the financials, think about the news for sure. But what you want to think about is your entry and your exit and have that planned out. So you're going for so much more than that of your risk in the short term in those types of trades. That's how you end up making money and not losing money as well. Okay, so Michael says, I would be concerned about Archer. There's about 100 companies working on these. Basically a helicopter at 10x the price. I understand it, Michael. That seems totally reasonable. The other thing that would be the biggest concern with Archer is their ability to continue to manufacture. But the coolest thing that I see with Archer personally is that they have real photos of their aircrafts. When you see real photos and you get to see real demos, that means they're actually doing it. And that's one of the best indicators. So that's the only thing that's really good. Other than that, it didn't look so hot on the financials and all that. So yeah, I agree with you. Anders is from Denmark. Hey, I'm glad I found your channel 2 weeks ago. I'm in at quantum stocks and AI stocks for more. Thanks for spreading your knowledge. Best regards. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks so much. Conan says, fair play. Waiting on sound to see if I get in, Johnny. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm glad we could kind of cover it. It has its risks, but I do believe they are providing legit value to the marketplace. So it makes sense. Do you have any premium groups? Yeah, we do have a premium group. You could call it that. It's more of a, it's where we have all of our targets. So it's Stockmates, the second link below, all the targets as well as which companies are reporting earnings. We go live for a session every single morning at market open. There's also members here that are chatting and talking about their different companies. Some really good research comes out of it. And one of my favorite is David recently. He says he got 100% all-time returns in the last 4 months. So he grew his account from 14K to 28K. Excellent. And David actually goes hard. He's very into the research. He's very on top of things. And when I was, he's actually a one-on-one client that I worked with as well. And I was saying, David, you're already on the right track. What are you doing here? He said, I think we can improve even more. So yeah, I mean, you got Stockmate there. If you want to take a look, we do have a sale running through the weekend. And for now, there's lifetime access. If you want it, it's the second link in the description. And you also will get a free t-shirt that I'll send to you anywhere in the world. So if you're tuning in from Denmark or wherever you're tuning in, I will send you that free t-shirt there. Cool. Awesome. Daniel says, you're my number one. Well, hey, dude, you're my number one as well, bro. Mamado, any news on CTM? Yeah, we can take a look there. Maya Jewel says, has a short percent change to cover position and waiting on Q2 to hop in to miss to cover the short. I think you're talking about sound. Brandon says, got any insights on AMTM? Would love to take a look. That one's really good financially. I like it. Miora says, Rich Tech Robotics. It's also another one we'll jump into. Nick says, hi, Will. I'm Nick from Romania. Everybody say hi to Nick. Let's go, Nick. Glad I found your channel. Watching ever since. How do you think that markets will react short term regarding the new bill? I got to look at the details. The problem is, and you know, I could search big beautiful bill, and this is the problem. It's that you got Fox News, you got CNN, you got USA Today, you got all these things telling you their interpretation of the bill. So I was just thinking about this. We got to actually look at the bill, and we actually got to look at what the bill actually says versus any other articles that come out with a certain agenda around formulating your beliefs around the bill. And so since I haven't actually looked at that and I've only seen headlines and everything else, that's actually something I got on my list of things to take a look at. So I can give you the facts, not necessarily an agenda of what I want you to believe when you hear about the bill. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to cover it, but it's a really great question. It's a good resource to probably take a look at. Thomas sent me $4.99. Is there any news on the new defense bill that's trying to get passed through for $1 trillion? I think that was the number, and there has been a lot of news. Let me write it down for you, Thomas, so that I can also take a look at that one, my man. So is it an AI defense bill or just a defense bill? Defense, got it. Okay. So you got defense and you got the triple B deal. All right. So I'm going to jump back into some ones here for sure. The Spud says, hi, Will. What are your thoughts on space tech company Planet Labs? They have contracts with the US and German governments and also supply their satellite images to worldwide news agencies. Yeah, I like it. I think they've been on a huge run recently. You can take a look. Kosh, what is your opinion on Rigetti? Just did a video on that, I think yesterday or the day before. So I'll go ahead and drop that. I'll drop that in the chat for you, so you get a full breakdown. Let me get that link for you. One moment. My thoughts on Rigetti long term. I'm very eager to continue to watch the long-term growth of the quantum market, and I think it's going to be really good. And I think that it is most likely going to be one of the most explosive technologies in history, alongside AI. So long-term looks really good. Short-term volatility is absolutely insane, so we could expect more of that. But in the video, I do a full breakdown, so I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat. There you are. Positions again, it's like you want to see that real world usage. RKLB, take a look. Wow, you guys, there is a lot, so we could definitely jump into each one. And Danny says, hit the like button, everybody. That's what it's all about. And I also appreciate so many good ones. We do have individual videos on some of these, but it has been probably like a few days since we've done some of the analysis on, for example, Rocket Lab. I think it's been a day or two. Let me see if there's any news on RKLB. RKLB. Is there any brand new news that they have come out with as of recently? Doesn't look like it. So, in that case, I can also drop a link for you, as I just covered it recently. Here is a full video on it reaching all-time highs recently. There you are. And also I could take a look at it here. I have a friend that works at Rocket Lab, and I was just talking to him this past weekend. And essentially the general consensus is a lot of other companies are relying on Rocket Lab to launch their rockets, which is a really good indicator that the long term looks really good for the company. And then the other thing is, when you look at their financials, they've had a lot of growth around their financials. $16 billion market cap, and they see increased quarterly revenues because of companies paying them more and more to do the launches. And they're almost up to $1 billion in revenue in this next year. So we're going to watch that. And then the balance sheet, their liabilities are high, which is pretty normal for a space company. But their total assets do exceed that of their liabilities. So financials, they've kept relatively healthy. And they're at an all-time high now. So it's possible you do see some corrections, even down as low as $25, which we've seen pretty commonly. But I do think they are the main, like, this is the deal. They're $16 billion market cap. SpaceX is like $250 billion market cap. So imagine Rocket Lab is a direct competitor with SpaceX. Share, keep an eye on that. Anders says, can we keep an eye on that? Anders says, can we get a take on AMD? Yes, let's jump into AMD. Let's do it. Also, Thomas, you sent me $4.99. That's going to hydrate me, dude, for the next like 6 days. Because each electrolyte packet is like 50 cents. That's like 6 days of hydration, man. You know how more energized I'll be to serve you? Dude, I'm gonna make like extra videos. That's enough hydration to go through 2 bills. We'll go through the defense bill, and we'll go through the beautiful bill, the big beautiful bill. DH says, one of your videos a couple weeks ago impressed me. You noticed the similarities between Microsoft chip and Rigetti. Not bad. What's your background? What is my background? I'm fairly self-educated. So yeah, that's a really interesting one. I think we talk about that in the Rigetti. So I'm going to jump into AMD, but before we do that, just a friendly reminder for that Rigetti setup. kind of what we were talking about with Rigetti in terms of their chip is when you look at their quantum computer, so down to the QPU, the quantum processing unit, basically what we talked about was like the Majorana 1 that was recently released with Microsoft, that it would perfectly fit inside the QPU. So do you guys see the Majorana 1? It looks like this. And so basically the idea is that it would fit perfectly, basically right here. And that people weren't really realizing that. And I was saying, like, I think that this is something that most people don't realize, and that it could be something to do with their partnership with Microsoft and how Microsoft could be developing technology that would work in tandem with the quantum computers that were being developed by Rigetti. And so it wasn't fully disclosed, but there was like one thing that Microsoft's like released, which I could never find. That I saw one time and then didn't see it after that, which was this video of how it looked when it was actually inside a quantum computer. And I could have sworn it was a Rigetti quantum computer, and it showed like down to the QPU and it zoomed out and showed the entire computer. So I don't know if I can find that video again. I would like to for you guys. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to find it. We could find it. Anyway, from an AMD perspective, a couple things to watch. So AMD stock recently had some nice trends that we were able to catch over on AMD and AMDL. And AMD here has continued to surge. So we saw it break out of trend and actually continue what was a bull trend, hyper bull trend. This is actually what we were looking forward to, because last time we talked about it, and it was making this run, we said, well, this is a previous resistance, and it might start to use this previous resistance here as a support, which would then kind of break it into new levels and see a new kind of trend develop, which we did. We started to see it really break out and continue to surge up to $147 a share before selling back to 137. I think the all-time recovery on Rigetti is what we're going to be seeing in the near term. Well, I don't know about near term, but definitely in the next like 6 to 18 months, I believe. So we're going to see something like this on AMD stock. AMD will recover up into this $226 per share. From my perspective, I see that to be quite possible. The financials look so favorable. In fact, their market cap's at $200 billion, but they're bringing in quarterly like $6 or $7 billion per quarter. Annually, they're bringing in $25 billion, and their balance sheet has been increasing, and everything is doubling. Like if you look at their revenue, net income's up almost 100% in the last year, which honestly, if it's 100% in the last year, doubling of revenue, but what have we seen in the last year? In the last year, we've seen them do nothing but sell off. We go to July 4th of last year. Basically, from there, it's done nothing but sell down. It's sold all the way down here, 55%. So I think seeing it get into this level is quite possible for AMD. And this recent pullback could be a hyperbull trend pullback, or more conservatively, we see it sell down as low as 130 before continuing. But I think this is what's happening with AMD. Now, of course, I could be wrong, and we could see it continue to sell off. I mean, that's kind of what we saw, even though they were doubling their revenue. But from an intrinsic value point, and you just start to see them develop new partnerships like this one, where they recently acquired Brium. They just bought this company that helps them build their own AI learning models. which puts them in a competition with OpenAI. And Brium is essentially one of the main companies that used AMD to optimize their LLM. So if you looked at their AI inference study, they showed the performance of with AMD as the GPUs they were using, how much faster their software Brium was here generating tokens and building or replying and writing in their large language model, as opposed to over here, which is the commonly used SG Lang. And you can see the time difference on how much faster the model on the left did. And so basically AMD recently purchased this company Brium and acquired them so that they could apply some of this architecture and software into their own learning language models, which puts AMD in a very unique position to take on actual AI and large language models that could be similar to that of OpenAI and things like that. So I think there's something in there in that acquisition. It was pretty quiet. They didn't announce it on their full like press releases. A lot of what they focus on now is like data centers and things like that and what they're sharing. But I think that's a quiet acquisition. We see them ramp down some of the gaming and ramp up a lot of the data centers and the software. And so I think that's putting them at an advantage, not to mention the real world usage. I'm running this live stream on Starlink satellites. I've seen Starlink fly over my house in California, and Starlink chose AMD as the main company for all of their microchips. So all the semiconductors going up into space for Starlink, SpaceX, is AMD, which I think is going to drive their price up even more. So that's kind of the way that I see it. Now it's possible that technically we see them pull back down and we see some corrections, but from a fundamental perspective and the long-term value of the company, I believe AMD is a nice play. Some people call it the advanced money destroyer. I've coined the term the advanced money duplicator. But hey, to each their own. Someone's name is AMD, and they said, their name is AMD, and they said, it's something that needs your attention, analysis, GRYP. And then they also say, hey, Will, could you please have a look at GRYP? Yeah, I hear you. I got your comment from AMD. How fitting for the recent analysis. You got TMC analysis. So there's a lot of different analysis, guys, from different ticker symbols, and I would love to get to them. So I'm going to do a quick run through. Clayton says, hey, how can I join the lifetime membership for Stockmate? It's the second link in the description. So if you click that second link in the description, it will take you to Stockmate, kind of learn how you can get into our daily live trading that we have. And then there's also a special code for you that you could use that's extended. Lifetime access is there, but as I mentioned, it is something I do every morning, Monday through Friday, in a private session, along with all the targets and stuff inside of Stockmate. So the lifetime access is most likely going away here in the near term because it's a lifetime access. You pay once. You know, some people do the quarterly, that works too. But yeah, so for those of you guys interested, that 4th of July sale is running. If you want to take a look at it, it's the second link in the description. And hopefully that answers your question in its entirety there for you, Clayton. So Tristan says, what do you think about Wolf Speed? I think the financials weren't there. Are they filing for Chapter 11? Oh, that's news to me. Everybody wanted me to cover this stock, man. And I said, are they filing for Chapter 11, like actually? Yes, they're filing for bankruptcy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so when we looked at them, their balance sheet was like this, right? So they were increasing their total assets, but their total liabilities were really increasing too. And that's why we didn't invest. It's because of the liabilities. So they're filing for bankruptcy now. Yeah, because like imagine, like what are they counting as their assets? If there's one discrepancy in the assets that maybe is an asset that wouldn't be totally liquid, then what does that do for them? That puts them in a high risk of total liabilities outweighing their assets. The other thing was all the 3D renderings of their chips versus real world photos. It's funny how big of a difference those indicators can make. And negative net income. Yeah, I mean, it's a gamble. It's a gamble, man. That's why we don't cover it. But I mean, all power to you if you want to like manage risk now. I would imagine that would be the thing to do. But it really depends on that. Sometimes companies come out of that too. I don't know what the details are. But no matter what, just put together a plan. That's the best thing you could do, probably. Okay, so do you guys feel how I'm like, all right, we're gonna go into some ticker symbols, but we continue to monitor the chat. So let me just, I'm gonna do a quick run here with some of those companies mentioned. Let me just scroll up and make sure we get through. Okay, so the next one is PTSD from Johnny. No, I'm just kidding, Johnny. That was a different thing. Is AMTM. Let's take a look. AMTM is most likely going to be a play that you would want to consider, and we have it on our watch list there. Last time we were looking at it, we pointed out this support level at $19, and we looked for a margin for profit of about 7%. Not only did it bounce at that support, it continued up another, well, 13%, up 21% as it continues to rally. They recently did an IPO, and AMTM stock has very favorable financials. You can see this compared to that wolf. You see wolf here with all the yellow. It's like revenues are in the blue. They're very positive in their revenues. They're up over 100% year over year in net income, as well as revenue nearing 100%. Quarterly, they do have some liabilities, but not really too close to their assets, and they continue to build that out. And they're a big company with 53,000 employees. If you look at AMTM or Amentum, let's take a look at their channel or they have a lot of contracts in space. So Golden Dome, they have defense contracts. I was able to meet some of the executives when I went to a space conference in Colorado, and they were seriously expanding in a lot of different ways. They had satellites, they had the AI, the military, they were working with robotics even. They were working in agriculture. There was a lot of growth in the company, and they just recently did build out their stock as public. And so now that they're public, they get a lot of contracts in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's very common. And they're saying potentially in one of their recent articles that is not even from them, so you got to be careful. You want to go to their news, that the new nuclear power executive orders could be shown to be successful for them as a company. So overall, really good long-term play. I actually don't have anything wrong with AMTM. I think that the recoveries long-term make sense. One thing to note though, as they've made this recovery, there is a pretty strong resistance and support here at about $24 a share, which is what they're at currently. We've seen them get rejected here a few times, but the question is, if they break out, now that's our new support, that $24 range. So it's a level to watch closely if you're kind of in the near term swing trade or trading. And if you're in the long term, of course, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's kind of the level at which I'd watch closely, that $24 price range. If you're looking for a good entry, when they pull back, let's say if they do get rejected, let's say that was kind of the trend that was developing. If they pulled down to that $22, $23 range, potentially could be like a better entry if you're looking for executing something like that. What you look for though is overall values looking good, overall financials looking good, direction looking good, and AMTM continues to do that. I've also seen them firsthand, so I know they're legit for sure. They are legit. So great call out there. Looks like the next one you got CTM stock. There wasn't any big news on CTM as of recently, but we did see them kind of dip down on Thursday. They're still in this overall uptrend, trying to make their way back into that $1.30 range, or even as high as that $1.70 range. So right now they're targeting 129, about 18% margins, and that 90% margin for profit up to $2 again. They do have this level of support they've been validating at around $1 a share with a continued uptrend. So CTM looks fairly good on that front. And then there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, I think they're just getting new contracts. They have consistent revenues, and the financials, for the most part, have looked pretty good. See, you got income statement consistent, annually increasing, balance sheet staying disciplined with their debt low and their total assets high. I think things are going well there. They're also in defense and cybersecurity, which puts them at an advantage. I'll go ahead and drop a link for you too for a full analysis on CTM that we just did 2 days ago. So there is the link. Just dropped in the chat there. Cool. So yeah, you got CTM. What do you think about regarding the new bill? Yep, we're gonna have to read the bill specifically. TMC. Take a look there. Let's do it. TMC. TMC. Oh, it's a metals company. They were surging and they had manipulation in the past. TMC stock had very unfavorable financials, but increasing balance sheet, was it? Nope. See how their liabilities are higher than their total assets? Just wouldn't touch it. See all the hype articles? Just wouldn't touch it. A lot of third parties. Yeah. See all the manipulation you've seen in the past, and since IPO, it's just kind of like decline, decline, decline. See it just selling down and getting manipulated. Yeah. Just wouldn't touch it. But if something comes out specifically that would indicate real world growth, the other person, someone commented OPTT, same deal. OPTT, big manipulation, same deal, declining. See that? Yeah, see that? Declining values. Then you could go OPTT, head over to the financials. They're the ocean mining company, I believe. Annual revenues decreasing. Annual assets shrinking year over year, with liabilities not really getting too much better. In fact, kind of increasing. So yeah, that's why we don't cover that one too. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Won't be going into that one anymore. Are you excited for Q2 for CTM? Hey, I think I'm excited. I don't know that I'm like necessarily, I mean, I'm just excited for all the earnings in general. Like recently inside of Stockmate, when I do the targets, I can get really good things together. But, you know, like, for example, when the markets are hot and everybody's kind of reporting, this is kind of how it looks, right? It looks like this. Highly anticipated. You got NVIDIA after hours, or which day they're reporting. But last week, do you want to see what last week looked like? How many of you guys want to see? You probably don't. I mean, this is the extent to which companies were reporting last week. We don't get the highly anticipated sticker on this one. So, yeah, you know, I'm very excited for earnings in that sense. But as far as meaning the markets are going to go up or anything like that, I don't really have too much to look forward to as far as I don't have any like specific things. There's definitely some potential catalysts there for sure. Victor, BKSY. Yes, sir. Let's take a look. BKSY recently surged about 607 million is where it's at market cap wise. It reached back to a previous level it had been. Annual revenues are increasing. Their balance sheet, it's been a little high on the liabilities, but you do see increases in their total assets. So they look pretty good. From a company overview perspective, they have these really cool technologies that are monitoring the ports of entry, even cars and vehicles. They have monitoring the airports and even super high def satellite imaging with their Gen 3 satellites. And they recently launched with Rocket Lab here on June 3rd, 2025. They launched with Rocket Lab to get their Gen 3 satellites up into space. So partnered with Rocket Lab, launching their Gen 3 satellites. I was able to meet some of their executives, and they were super well oriented on where the company was going. And they have a good amount of new contracts. They got some contracts related to defense. They just secured a $24 million contract there. You got definitely some large players that are working with BlackSky. You got NASA. You got, I think it's Department of Defense. You could see they're working commercially as well as with the government. Multi-million-dollar defense innovation contracts, multi-year contracts with combined value of 8 figures. So yeah, they continue to provide value and build out their satellites in space. And on top of that, they also have some favorable reasons. If we go to our space tech watch list, you can see we recently entered a position here down at the support level. It's about a 65% trade we were able to make in the last 2 weeks, 10 days. So, BlackSky, really good entry. One of the best trades we were able to make this year. Last year, I made 109% returns on the portfolio. And you know what? The number one contributor was just a 75% trade that we made on TSLL around this time last year, actually, when I traded TSLL, which was the Tesla, and it made up a huge portion of our entire year gains. BlackSky is one of those trades. Same thing with BBAI, same thing with AMD, but really BlackSky, what a swing. So what we're looking at is validation of that $18, $19 price point, seeing a continuation back up into those levels of that $25 range, which is about a 30% swing or 40% swing from here. So you got to watch that closely. There's higher risk as it's low market cap, but they are providing a lot of value to the world. So that's why we cover them. That's why we like to watch them. So yeah, from a win to enter type of area, probably down near this support level at $18 if you're looking for that shorter term play. Why would you look there? It's just a really strong previous resistance there. And when you look for that potential sell down, probably around market open or something like that, depending on exactly how the market reacts after this weekend. So a lot of reasons to take a look. Can you give us your take on NVO, Novo Nordisk? Yeah, definitely would love to. I actually have to get going here, guys, as the stream's been a little bit longer here. But Moheen, definitely will take it. Let me write it down. Let's see. LAES. LAZR. I personally like LAZR. I know that it's like super volatile, but I like the tech. There's a new quantum computing stock. Category for quantum computing stocks. That's cool. Hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for all of the ticker symbols, guys. I see MOGO as well. And we'll take a look there. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got the full breakdown on a lot of companies, so it's been super eventful. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, great Friday here on 4th of July. And again, if you guys want to join us live sessions, not tomorrow, but on Monday at Market Open, then it's the second link in the description to join our daily live sessions. You can also get into our exciting earnings we talked about and join in and get some insights from some of the members inside of Stockmates, as well as potentially get to work with me one-on-one. But I do call every new member of Stockmates. So if you decide you want to be there, I'd love to give you a call and make sure that you're all good and getting set up. So thanks so much for watching, guys. If I earned your thumbs up, smash the like button. Thanks so much for doing that. And do consider subscribing if I earned it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, guys. See you.